What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Triple H Podcast Happy Hour Hoops. Guys, don't forget Happy Hour Hoops is brought to you by Win Streaks. It's simple. You pick teams to win, accumulate points based off those picks, and then win cash prizes. Win Streaks is 100% free to play. You can make up to 5 picks today on MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, college basketball, college football. 100 players win cash prizes every week, $2,000. Again, contest runs every week from Monday to Sunday, and it is 100% free to play. Use our code HHH in the referral spot when you sign up. Guys, the Boston Celtics are up 3-0 in the NBA Finals on the verge, and we're one win away. Celtics are one win away from NBA champions. It's not the finals we anticipated, but there's definitely been some storylines, some craziness throughout. Steve, you have the first words here if you want them. Let's start with last night. First, the Mavs. First game in Dallas for the Mavs. Kyrie and Luka both start hot. Kind of what everyone anticipated. What were your thoughts going in, and what are your thoughts after?
Thoughts going in was this is a chance to get right back in the series. This is a chance for, if we're going to be completely honest, Dunny, Kyrie just didn't look comfortable in the first two games of Boston. So I was like, this is a chance for Kyrie to really, show that he has been playing the way he's been playing all year long. It's been the best Kyrie we've seen really since his prime Cavs days. And he showed that. And, Luka played great, and the minutes he played, he actually led all Mavs in plus minus for the game with +9, and 4 fouls in the fourth quarter. It's going to hurt you. It just kind of felt like that classic Mavs game where at the start of the game, I was like, oh my gosh, like they look like they have it tonight. They're playing great. And I just, remember who's on the other side of the court, and it's the Boston Celtics, and it's this Boston Celtics team that is almost impossible to put away. They have not dropped a road game in the postseason. That is beyond impressive. This is a team that no lead is safe, and the Mavs were up 13 in the first quarter, and the quarter ended with a 1-point lead for Dallas. Like they erased a 12-point lead. I thought the game was over when the Mavs were down 21 in the fourth quarter, and then we had that insane run, and it almost gave me flashbacks to when they had that insane run against OKC, when they had that insane run against the Clippers. Now, the Clippers game, they didn't end up winning, but it was, those types of runs, those types of comeback runs the Mavs could go on, whereas like, oh my gosh, they might steal this, and then it kind of turned into Luka battling with the refs for a little bit. And, I'll dive into that more because, I'm not ever going to blame the refs, and I'm not going to say there's one or two calls that changed the outcome of a game. Would I have loved to have Luka Doncic for the last 4 minutes instead of Tim Hardaway? Absolutely. And I'll get into Tim Hardaway later because if he's in a Dallas Mavericks uniform next year, I might not be in a Dallas Mavericks entire next because he's been that much of just an absolute just disgrace to this team. Tim Hardaway has not scored a point since May 18th. Just fun fact out there. Fun fact out there.
I was going to ask you that.
Dunny, as hard as it is for me to be upset with the Mavs being down 3-0, as hard as it is for me to be like, they got to the championship. They made the moves at the deadline. They had this run. They were on an unbelievable pace at the end of the season. They went through the Clippers, quote-unquote, super team. They went through OKC, the new, fun, young team. They went through Minnesota, where everyone was trying to, put Anthony Edwards on top of the mountain. They went through these teams. They looked unbelievable. As much as I wanted to, believe that this team could beat the Boston Celtics, I got to be completely honest. As well as I have that I have been as big as on the Boston Celtics as a great team for the past 2 years as you have. That I have said that this team, especially coming into this season, that Drew Holiday and Porzingis were massive, massive acquisitions. And I still don't think people realize how big of an acquisition Drew Holiday was to this team.
Thanks, Milwaukee.
I thought, the Mavs star power maybe could have overcome a couple games, stolen a couple games. But at the end of the day, watching game 3, and I think game 3 kind of mirrored game 2 a little bit. It wasn't exactly the same, but it was kind of similar. When the Mavs are hot, when the Mavs are going, yeah, they can play with the Boston Celtics. But the difference is the Mavs have to work for every single possession. The Celtics allow no easy baskets. They allow no easy looks. And then you have on the other side, and people will, try to point fingers and say it's just solely because of Luka's defense, which I'll get into the whole blow-bys later because that's just been, if you watch a Mavs game all regular season long, that's just kind of how they play defense and rotate. But that's besides the point. It's the Celtics passing and their ability to just have everyone in movement and get guys open. They get easy looks. It's not like they're just doing this against a Mavs team. People want to talk about the Dallas Mavericks defense. The Dallas Mavericks had the second best defense in the NBA since the trade deadline. I'm assuming they kind of know what they're doing on the defensive end. Sometimes you just have to give credit where credit is due. And Donnie, last night I just had to tip my hat to the Boston Celtics because even when the Mavs almost had that 21-point comeback in the fourth quarter, even when the Mavs were off to a great start, the Boston Celtics just make you work for every single possession. And then on the other end of the floor, they're just getting guys open with ease. I mean, you see it, Sam Hauser, Drew Holiday, Tatum, they're already in the shooting motion when they catch the ball. It's a joy to see. It's honestly, it's just all bias aside from this, all bias of wanting the Mavs to win, wanting Luka to get his first championship. It is a joy as a basketball fan because this reminds me of the Spurs teams with Greg Popovich, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, where they it just feels like everything's so effortless. Guys are just getting open looks so easily. You have your superstars, right? You have your superstars, but they don't need to score 35 a night. Jason Tatum doesn't need to score 35 a night. Tim Duncan never needed to score 30, 35 a night in the playoffs. It's just effortless for him. Where in the Boston Celtics, you can make an argument in all 3 games, there was a different player who was probably the best player that game. Porzingis in game 1, Drew Holiday in game 2, Jaylen Brown in game 3. And guess what? I haven't even mentioned the best player on their team, Jason Tatum, who as much hate as he gets in the NBA media, who only watches highlights and reads a box score. He's been all NBA. He's been one of the best players in the league, and we've talked about this. It's so impressive to watch, and it's infuriating and frustrating being on the other end of it. And obviously, Dunny, I've always, liked this Celtics team. Jaylen Brown's one of my favorite players. I always have defended Jason Tatum. Like, this is a team that I've enjoyed watching, when the Mavs aren't on or if there's, not a great slate. And I'm like, hey, I want to watch the Celtics kill someone. By 25, I'll put on the Celtics game. I've always defended this team. It sucks being on the other end, man. Especially in the NBA Finals, because you can only do so much. I get so emotionally invested, and I'm like, we might have this. And then next thing you know, the third quarter starts in game 3. The Celtics make their first 6 shots. And the Mavs were even trying to keep pace. I think the Celtics were like 6 of 6 to start. The Mavs were 4 of 7. Those 4 made baskets were hard baskets. They were tough shots. The 6 shots for the Celtics, it's just like they're going through the motions. And I have to give all credit to Boston because I'd be crazy if I didn't give them credit. If I was trying to be one of these social media warriors or one of these clickbait media personalities on any of the major networks where they're trying to blame Dallas. Because for some reason, people don't want to give this Celtics team credit. For some reason, people think that a Jimmy Butler and Tyrese Halliburton and even a Giannis injury away from taking out the Celtics team. Breaking news, nobody's beating the Celtics team.
No.
Nobody's beating the Celtics team. Everyone who wanted to give the Mavs and Luka credit for going through the war of the West, which they did, is now trying to discredit them because they're down 3-0 to a team that had 64 wins, was first in offense, second in defensive rating the entire season, the best point differential by far. That's what we've gotten to, and I get it. We overreact game to game. Like, I understand that. But we have to look back and be realistic here and be like, hey, you know what? It's a damn good Celtics team. It's a really good team. Shout out Brad Stevens. Shout out everyone because they have created a starting 5. And I'm not even beginning to talk about their bench. Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard, perfect guys to come off the bench.
Xavier Tillman last night.
Tillman hit a three, played fantastic defense. Like they've created. I don't want to talk about that. They've created kind of the perfect team, and all it is people trying to discredit them and finding excuses on the other end. Like, I get it. I've seen the Brian Windhorst rant. I've seen the stats on Lucas Blowby. Just watch one Mavs game in the regular season. Just one. Just watch one, and then you can tell me that something's different. Also, too, the people will be like, oh, what happened to Luka, man? He just doesn't look the same. Do we just forget that these injuries didn't just disappear because they got to the NBA Finals?
Going into game
did people not see game one? He was all wrapped up.
They didn't just disappear. Like, he's playing out of his mind for someone who's injured. Yeah, I get it. It's not easy to defend this Boston Celtics team. It's not just him. Kyrie hasn't played good defense. Derrick Jones Jr., who has been shutting down everybody, has had no answers for this Celtics team. And that's where, as much as, Johnny, I would love to make excuses. I'd love to say, oh, the Mavs are a couple calls away from winning game 3. Luka stays in the game. As much as I'd love to do that, I just have to give the Boston Celtics credit, man. This is an incredible basketball team. Drew Holiday, I mean, is it crazy to say, like, Drew Holiday's a better player than Damian Lillard? Is that crazy?
I would say that right now.
Is that crazy? Like,
I don't think people are going to believe it coming from me, but I believe that.
Damian Lillard's a better scorer, but if we're talking overall basketball player, Drew Holiday's just shown he's been better at every place he's gone to. Is that crazy? Yeah. I don't think it is. I mean, when Derek White's your 4th, and if Porzingis is healthy, 5th best player on the floor, yeah, your team's good. Your team's tough to beat.
That's what it comes down to in this series. We could have broken it down before this series. I mean, I think we did talk about it last week, was that the 2-2, whatever way you want to rank those guys. Oh yeah, we did the rankings, we did the draft. And the 2-2, you can go whatever which way you wanted to. I think we all decided Kyrie was that clear 4th there of those guys. But then you want, 5 through 10, even just if you look at the benches, the 3 through 12, like that's all it comes down to is 3 through 12 on the Celtics it's just a deeper team, and the role players are stars in their roles. Like, if a Drew Holiday is on the Mavs in this series, it's a completely different series. Yeah. He might be the second best player on that team in this series. It's like there's just a level of talent that the Celtics are at, and they also play a beautiful game of basketball and complement each other. Like, it's a perfect mix of both those things. Similar to the Spurs, but the Spurs, I would even say the Spurs didn't have as star-studded of a lineup as this ever. Like, no. It was guys that like Parker and Ginobili are not, Jaylen Brown.
No, but it reminds me of that style of basketball.
100%, and that's definitely like the ethos of it. That's what they're going for and everything. But it's crazy.
The 04 Pistons comps have been interesting as well.
But they're more
talking like the Prince Hamilton Billups team?
Yeah.
Like Brown,
they never had like a superstar. Yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't have 2 like just legit 2-way wings that can either take over a game and then have that supporting cast. They just kind of had their supporting cast was a little deeper and a little more depth at each position, I guess, but they didn't have really the standouts that the Celtics do at those positions.
You know what makes the Celtics so tough? And I'm hopefully we will be talking about this years down the road. I don't think there has been a team in NBA history that 1 through 5 has as good of rim protectors as this Boston Celtics team. Derek White and Drew Holiday are as good as any big man when it comes to defending down low.
That block Derek White,
unbelievable.
I'm sitting at the bar with my friends, and we're all like in shock. Just like, how did Derek White? How did he even get there? How does he do that? And he's good for one of those basically every game.
This is
one of those absurd blocks.
I know this is lame too because this one didn't count, but he had one a few minutes before that in the same game where if his thumb didn't get caught in the net after he blocked Derek Lively, who was trying to dunk over him, he would have had 2 insane blocks at the rim. That one was a 7-foot center who's one of the more explosive players in this finals. And then obviously, the one on the fast break on Washington. And, JB did push him in the back a little bit there. But if we're giving credit to Derek White, he didn't foul him at all.
No,
as much as it is, I think we're just talking about the Mavs side. The Celtics defense has been great, but it's also just, I think it's just a really bad matchup for this Mavs roster that we've hyped up. You look at the lobs that they're killing teams with, and this, like you said, with the rim protection, they're not getting any of those looks. They're getting out. PJ Washington, he's been fine, 14 points last night, even though I bet him over 14 and a half. So thank you, PJ. Those two missed threes.
he had like 1 point at halftime, though, so he almost got it for
I know, but he had 2 looks at it. I'm sitting there, I'm like, come on. Yep, missed a free throw. Yep. So, but they've not let him really. It's not like he's getting to the rim at all. It's just kind of those open threes, and if he's going to go supernova in one of these games, but they're getting good. Like both the threes at the end that I'm talking about that he missed, he double pumped on both those because there was a Celtic in his face before he could unleash on that. Like they're just matching up so perfectly with what the Mavs want to do on offense, and I think that's where the frustration sets in for Luka as much as anything else, because all these lanes and all these answers that he has like developed over the playoffs, that is like the key to a playoff run, is you gain new, like you kind of grow as a team and find new answers and everything. He had all those, and the Celtics just have the wherewithal, the defensive prowess, and the personnel to take every single thing away. And it's just, they can't attack them like they want to at all. They can't. This off, like you said earlier, like how hard it is for them to do anything. I just don't even know what tactical adjustment they can make except hope Luka and Kyrie score like 70 or 80, I guess, tomorrow.
They gotta just hope they hit 8 threes each at this point. Yeah. Because the one thing I'll say too about the Celtics defense, it's the first time all year. Now, I'm not saying playoffs. I'm saying all year, besides probably when they played the Celtics, where Luka and Kyrie down low are almost hesitant sometimes, where it's like, definitely. Like Luka's, when he likes to get someone underneath him, get him on he got Tatum on his back last night. Yes, I'm sure you remember this play, Donnie. Yeah, he got Tatum on his back, went for the ball fake, and Tatum still defended it. And it's one of those things where Kyrie with his circus shots with the left hand, Luka with the, the hezzy fake and the sometimes going under, or maybe the slow turnaround spin jumper, whatever you want to do. They have done that all year long effortlessly. The Celtics, not only are they good at defending it, they don't get faked out by either of these guys. No. They're disciplined. Their discipline on defense, especially down low, is outstanding. And that comes to talent, right? That comes to defense. But that's got to come to coaching at some point too.
Yeah.
That has to get, you have to give coaching some credit there. And Mazzulla, tons of credit for how they have defended this Mavs team. But not only that, how they have made Luka and Kyrie uncomfortable and hesitant in situations where they're usually just cold-blooded killers.
I think Mazzulla's done a great job with the no Porzingis lineups, particularly last night too, with just not having him at all, not just, starting Al Horford, because that's a luxury that the Celtics have, just being able to slide him in. But, having confidence to go with Pritchard, who's done a fantastic job on both Luka and Kyrie somehow. I don't know if you guys noticed Pritchard kind of pulled the chair. I've never seen someone pull the chair on someone who is trying to foul bait, because Luka is so good at that. And, foul bait kind of sounds like a negative term. We all know, I think the three of us know, that that's just, a smart move in today's NBA. And it has been for a long time. Paul Pierce is a guy who was great at it too. James Harden, obviously, we saw perfected it, to the 10th degree. Luka last night was going for one of those with Pritchard on him, and Pritchard just kind of leaned back, and then Luka put it up short because he was sure that he was going to get fouled. So shout out Pritchard. He's done a great job. But
I do wish Luka would sometimes just shoot to shoot and not shoot to try to draw that and one.
And that's, to your first point that you made about, him being hesitant. There's a lot of things game one that stood out with Jaylen Brown, where Luka was throwing in the second, third shot fakes, and Brown didn't go for the first one, and he just stayed home, and Luka was kind of like, oh shit, usually by now I have someone in the air. And just not the case with the Celtics group. And someone, Pritchard just came to mind when I was talking about the bench, but the real flowers that I want to give out with defending, and the most that I've been surprised with, because all of America was saying going into the series, if Porzingis isn't out there, that the Mavs need to put Al Horford in pick and rolls. And Al Horford has done a crazy good job, all things considered, on Luka. You know, Kyrie's gotten his number a few times. I think more specifically Luka, but there's even a few plays down the stretch where Horford was defending Kyrie and Kyrie didn't score. And that turnaround jump shot that you're talking about with Luka, who he hits over nearly anyone, and he did hit it over Horford a couple times, but Horford was contesting on that. I think he blocked one
Yeah, he did.
in 2 different games this series. So yeah, it really is just incredible, the individual defense. You know, I love that you give the credit to Missoula there too, because he, you know, whether you agree with his weird antics and showing the guys UFC fights and watching the town over and over again, it works and he gets through the players, and I think it shows, especially on the biggest stage in the finals, and we saw that last night and the first 2 games as well.
Joe's just a little bit of a psycho, but that can be a good NBA coach. That doesn't mean that you can't be. I think
you need a little bit
better.
of a psycho.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably better to be an NBA coach to be a little bit of a psycho. So
Derek White post game last night called him a sicko because he was like, Missoula probably liked that we let it get that close and then ended up winning anyway.
Yeah, more grit.
The quote on the UFC fights was he shows them videos of guys who are about to win the fight or guys who are getting choked out, because when you're about to win the fight is when you get sucker punched. So he showed people who were maybe showboating or about to win the fight and then, you know, took a cheap shot or a final blow that they weren't expecting. And, you know, that's what everyone in the world probably anticipated from the Mavericks last night. That's what I thought was going to happen with the Mavericks last night. They came out in the first quarter and essentially did that.
Because that's been the Celtics the last 3 years. How many times have they coasted in a fourth quarter where it's just been like, oh my gosh, like this game was 25 points and now it's 4 for what? Like Boston, where you could have won this game by 50. And to see that kind of play out last night the way it did is like the biggest thing from this Boston. Like that was the final hurdle for me. I feel like that I needed to see was like get over that moment in that stage. They didn't look shook at all when that lead started dwindling.
Really, in any of these games, that happened. Yeah.
So what were you saying about the first quarter that you saw?
I don't remember the exact point I was making, but yeah, no, they just the Mavs came out hot. Everyone was anticipating it. I was anticipating it. Kyrie and Luka, like Steve mentioned, you know, they got the Mavs up 13, and then you blink, and by the end of the first quarter, it was a game again. Like it was pretty much even by the end of the first, and you're like, it seems like they had to work so hard to get that 13-point lead. I was, you know, shocked and not shocked all at the same time, and you know, I was anticipating that, but I was like, I didn't think Kyrie would start this hot. But I think, you know, it might sound obvious and it might sound like the lazy take, but it's, you know, these guys trying to exert their energy covering the 5, you know, super talented players that we're talking about that the Celtics have, and then also trying to carry the load offensively. It was a lot for Kyrie and Luka in these finals, and I didn't think it would be this tough for them. But I think, you know, maybe there's some people in the national media that shouldn't be this surprised. And, you know, this is no discredit to Luka and Kyrie. I just never believed this from the beginning. Maybe this is why you don't get ahead of yourselves and call these two, you know, one of the best backcourts ever assembled, or one of the best duos to ever play this game, or one of the most talented duos, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, you know, people are getting ahead of themselves with that because look where we are now. They're down 0-3 in the NBA Finals, and again, not a discredit to either of them. I think the national media is doing them a disservice saying stuff like that because they haven't accomplished anything together yet. They had a hell of a playoffs run, which was amazing, but now I think Luka specifically, not really the Mavs team, is dealing with a lot of what the Celtics dealt with in 2022 when they had to go up against the Warriors team, who kind of in that finals too, right? Like people were like, oh, we all know what Steph and Clay and this group is. But I feel like people are kind of starting to lead. Oh, I don't know. These Celtics just did such a good job in the East. It might be their turn now. That's kind of what we were hearing about the Mavs right before the finals started. It was like, oh, I don't know. The Celtics had an easy path. The Mavs have been doing this. And, you know, Luka can't be stopped. And then, you know, we're here now. And we have guys like Brian Windhorst just going on Scott Van Pelt show, absolutely going in on Luka after the game. And it's like, yeah, he made some mistakes down the stretch, but this is also his first finals. And like we keep mentioning, this is one of the best teams ever assembled in the Boston Celtics. And, if people want to say I sound like I'm,
No, let's
viewing
give them this. If
hyperbole
you
there.
haven't seen this I'll give the same stat we all saw and we talked about before this, because if you haven't seen this on Twitter or anywhere today, this is it for your proof here about one of the best teams assembled. Hold on, I'm getting it up on my phone. Bill Simmons tweeted this out earlier. It's 2024 Celtics are 79-20. There's a 20 or losses or less club for NBA champions. Only 7 did it, and won 80 games too. The 71 Lakers, who were 81-15. That was Jerry West's championship team.
Decent.
96 Bulls, 97 Bulls, 87-13, 84-17. Not bad. Not a bad.
87-13.
The 2017 Warriors, 84-16. I can tell you that felt like an 84-16 team.
Mm-hmm.
The 67 76ers are 79-17. 86 Celtics, 82-18. The Lakers in 87, 82-18. 78-18, the 71 Bucks with Kareem. The 76ers in 83, 77-18. And the Golden State Warriors were 83-20 in 2015. So the Celtics could be, if they win tomorrow, it will be an 80-20 season. And that company that they're in are at least, some of the best teams and best seasons we've ever seen in NBA history by all accounts, whether it's the Bulls, that Celtics team, one of those Warriors teams. That's what we're dealing with here. And you want to talk about what stats prove things? Historical context that's all you need right there. Like when you put it in that manner, you can't just look at the league and be like, oh, it's a weak East. It's like that's basketball. Like always finds I feel like the NBA playoffs, why I enjoy the finals so much, is because you generally find out who the best team is every single year. There's not a lot of years in the NBA finals where you have a run by a team that's just like completely out of nowhere. Like the Heat a couple years ago, yes, but we saw that infrastructure, and they had been in the finals in the bubble and everything, so it's not like it was like an unheard of thing for their playoff success. But like it happens so rarely compared to like hockey or even football. Like how many times does a wild card team make a run in the playoffs? Baseball, it happening too. Like you can't just chance your way to an NBA finals. There's really hard to do. In injuries, you could go through. I kind of want to, if I ever have the time to do it, I want to go back and just look through all these playoffs and just say like, oh, so-and-so was hurt on, the Mavericks this year, and that maybe if he was on that team, they could have won that series. So I guarantee you there's at least one injury every single playoffs where it's like, oh, well, if that guy didn't get hurt, maybe they win this series, and then this team is like, that's literally just the sport. Like eventually you're just going to have to accept that it's hard to play 100 basketball games from October to June. Like your body's not supposed to do that. And that's why it's an amazing thing for a team to not only be playing at this level, but to be playing at this level with relative health and energy and everything to get it done because of how much the run takes out of you. That's the biggest thing you got to respect with this Celtics team, but before you try to go discredit them in any one which way. I don't think it'll ever happen but that's just like, it's crazy to me that every year we hear about somebody's injury and it's like, bro, like it literally is just, that happens. Like you just get hurt. There's nothing else to it. That's sports. It's not
Also,
2K. We can't turn them off. Like it's just not going to happen.
One of the most important dudes on our team this year, although we were going up against some injured squads, we also didn't have Kristaps Porzingis for over 40 days.
No one talks about that, though.
Yeah.
No one wants to talk about that.
It doesn't count.
It doesn't count when it's the Celtics player getting hurt, only when it's the other team.
And then when we have our first road game in the NBA Finals, we also don't have Porzingis, and they still found a way to get it done last night.
And that's, I think, what's going to come, with time. I think that Boston Celtics, because they're the Boston Celtics, because, they have been such really a good team.
If we're talking about the Tatum hate and everything else,
it's because they're Boston.
It's just because it's the Celtics. It literally is.
Right. And because, they've been a good team basically since they drafted Tatum and Brown, a very good team, and they've, came up short. They've gone to multiple Eastern Conference Finals. I think Tatum said the five or six, right, Dunny? think 5 or
think
6
it's
Eastern
6,
Conference
isn't it?
Finals.
Yes.
I think it is 6.
6.
Yeah, six Eastern Conference Finals. They've been to the NBA Finals twice. For our audio listeners,
Kobe White.
one of our classics, JBC just says Bulls would wipe the floor with both these teams. I think he must be talking 86, 87 Bulls, because other than that, I don't
Kobe,
know.
Kobe is cooking. He's getting 35 a game.
Hey, I won't say a bad word about Kobe White. You know that. But I think that's the thing with the Celtics, because they came up short before because they've been so good for so long but don't have the championship. I think initially when they get the championship, there may be people who will try to discredit it, say they were going through injured, right? They'll try to hate on it. But we're going to look back on this, Dunny, probably a couple of years from now, or even not a couple of years, probably just a couple months, and people are going to be like, wait a second. This Celtics team was special.
Oh, yeah.
This Celtics team was good. Oh, they beat everyone by like 10 points a game in the regular season? Wait, they were first in offense, second in defense? Like, wait, this is the team we're talking about? Like, everyone on the Celtics in their starting 5, both offensively and defensively, rates insanely high, especially for their positions. Like, we're just going to look back on this and be like, oh, yeah, no, it makes sense. They won 64 games. They won the East by 15 games. They didn't even have to play the final 3 weeks of the regular season. They did a few games here and there, but they didn't even have to. And normally when a team coasts like that, you're like, oh, they might be a little rusty. They have lost, and if they do sweep the Mavs Friday, which at this point I don't know if I want the Mavs to win that game or not, because I still want to watch more.
I kind of want the nice weekend, honestly.
I want to watch more basketball, but I don't want to have to stress over it right after Friday. They're not winning 4 straight against the Celtics team. I'll admit that. I'd love Luka maybe to steal Friday's game, go off, and then people can just be quiet about him for 2 days. But regardless of the fact, like, this team lost 2 playoff games. I do not care. I do not care that the Pacers didn't have Halliburton for a couple games, because guess what happened? The games they had Halliburton, they still won. I do not care that the Heat were missing Jimmy Butler for a couple games, because they still won. Like, you play who's in front of you. And they lost 2 games. If the series against Indiana went 7, Miami went 7, right? Situations like that, it'd be like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, maybe a fully healthy team. Maybe they do win that series. Dunny, can you please remind me? First round series for the Boston Celtics. They faced
5.
They faced 2. They faced 2.
The Miami Heat.
Miami Heat, and they won a 5. And then who'd they play? The next one?
The Cavaliers. They won.
The Cavaliers, 5. And they won a 5. Oh, okay. And then Donovan Mitchell, he missed every game that series, right? He missed every game in that series.
No, not every game.
Oh, not every game, but okay. And then they played the Indiana Pacers, correct? The Indiana Pacers, and it was a sweep. And Halliburton missed every game, I'm assuming, right?
No, he played.
Oh, he did play some games, and they still won those games. Okay, just making sure. And now they're up 3-0 on the Dallas Mavericks, correct? And as much as this pains me to say it, right? As much as this pains me to say it, the Boston Celtics have won 10 consecutive playoff games. Is that correct,
That is correct.
So what are we discrediting? I don't understand it. I like it. It's not like they're struggling. Oh, this is a war series. Oh, this is tough. Yeah, a couple of the games were close, and I can honestly argue, Donnie, that the Celtics did have the big run, but there was a point in game 2 or game 3 where I think both you and myself felt like this could go either way.
Yeah,
I think very late in the fourth quarter in both game 2 and game 3, they could go either way. But what do great teams do? What do elite teams do? The Pacers games. There were a couple games the Pacers could have won. But guess what? The Celtics, they persevered. They won those games. It takes a lot out of a team that is as good and dominant as the Boston Celtics to not just beat the piss out of teams, but know how to win the tough ones too. And that's what the Boston Celtics has shown me. They won 4-1, 4-1, 4-0, and now they're up 3-0. Yeah. You do the math, they're 15-2 in the playoffs. They went 64 in 18 in the regular season. And honestly, a couple of their losses in the regular season just didn't care because they had clinched the East.
I'll always have the Dean Wade game.
You'll always have the Dean Wade game. But this is a Celtics team that show we can win by 50 and we can win by 5. And That's
it happened
something
against the
that
Pacers. It happened against the Cavs. They were in a lot of
that's what I'm
close
saying,
games
man.
and won these games. The
And,
only
and
two losses were like aberration blowouts where it was just like, all right, we're done here. Like,
And even in the two losses they had, I believe both teams were shooting north of 50% from three.
yes.
Yeah, the Miami Heat set a franchise record.
Yeah.
That's
Almost
how
an
do
NBA
you
record, yeah.
how do you beat the Boston Celtics? Oh, you have to shoot lights out from
A
three,
legendary
and
three-point
you'll beat them by like 5 or 6.
I'm
You
pretty
like you
sure the Porzingis. I'm pretty sure the Miami game where they shot a record 3-point shooting numbers. I'm pretty sure Porzingis had his like worst shooting performance ever
Right.
in
I think
that
so
game
too. I
too.
think he had like 2 shots or something like that.
so
This is
So I guess the long point I'm trying to make, where I told you I was going to rant today. It was just going to happen.
Porzingis shot 11% from the field
Exactly.
in that game.
that's tough.
And Tatum didn't shoot well in game 2. No one's going to talk about the 12 assists he had. No one's going to talk about the passing lanes he found. But he didn't shoot well in game 2 in the NBA Finals, and they still won the game.
J Kid wound him up.
The point I'm trying to make is the fact that we're going to look back, hopefully a couple months from now. Who knows in NBA terms? Could be 5 years. It'd be like, oh, this was a damn good Boston Celtics team that really no one else in the league kind of was on equal, playing field to. And as much as I'd love the Mavs to steal a game, as much as I'd love the Mavs to make it a series, because I do think game 2 and 3 are close. And if the Celtics do sweep, we're just going to look back at this in history and be like, oh, wow, the Celtics swept the Eastern Conference Finals and NBA Finals. Like, they were a step above, which they were. But I would love the Mavs to, make it look like a little bit more of a competitive series, because I do think game 2 and 3 are close. But regardless, the fact of the matter is that this is one of the best teams we've seen in a long time. This is one of the best teams that I've witnessed in my 30 years on this planet. Well, in my, I wasn't following basketball strictly when I was 4 or 5 years old. Let's just say 20 years. Last 20 years watching the NBA, like this is
If
one
you
of the
told
best.
me you were that locked in when you were 4 or 5
Yeah.
years old, I would believe you.
Yeah.
Hey, football, I might have been at 4 or 5. I had my little Rams helmet, my Rams football. Basketball, we took a little bit of time though. But like the last 20 years, this is one of the best teams I've watched. And Dunny, like, this is a team that could have been back to back. Like it took everything in that Miami Heat series, and they still almost came back in that series. I mean, this is a team that's been so good, and they were so much better this year than they were last year. It was like, last year, they just have a few pieces they need to get. They got the exact right pieces this year, and this is a team we're going to look back on and be like, wow, this is a team that really, you put the perfect team together. You built the perfect team. And I don't like to throw out Hall of Fame, because you never really know in basketball. It is tough for the Hall of Fame and what guys' resumes will be like. But with a championship, Al Horford, Drew Holiday, they have cases. I know Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are young, right? They're super young, but we see what they are right now. I mean, this is a team we can look back and be like, they have 4 Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had 4 Hall of Famers in their starting 5. And that's not to say anything bad about Derek White. He's the exact – if Derek White's your 5th best player on the court, then you've won the game already.
Yeah. I think exactly what you said, and Dunny, this is not to pump your tires here even more, but looking at the totality of this run, 27. You talked about it with Tatum earlier. It was literally rookie year. I know it was against the Cavs in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's when this starts. Like, he's a rookie and they're in the conference finals. So you start from there. 2020, they're in the conference finals and so damn close in the bubble to that Lakers Celtics finals. 2022, they're literally, not to bring up old wounds, Dunny, but literally up 2-1 in a series, which might be, when we look back, like as you're talking about the historical context of the series, might be like the passing in the ship moment of NBA history, where it was the last great dynasty going into the team. Like, the Celtics aren't going anywhere after this year. Like, that's the thing. I'm going to get real sick of this shit soon, Dunny, because they're going to win this, and then they're going to be back in the conference finals, and then they're probably going to be back in the conference finals, and then they're going to be damn close to the conference. Like, they're going to be at least in the Final Four, I would imagine, for the next couple years. And, like, we could be looking at this as one of those runs where you're like, man, that team was really great, and they really showed it when they won that first finals. That was like the most impressive finals that they had out of all these different ones. And right now in the moment, why are we not just like looking at that in this very historical?
That's not how basketball
moment?
fans operate nowadays.
Not
Jake.
anymore.
You know
I
that.
know it's crazy, but it's just like, and it is because of the Celtics, which is a big thing of it too. I think, Duddy, which is unfair to you guys in this context, because you know who pissed me off more than anybody? The Golden State Warriors. Obviously, there was a lot of more reasons for that, but the Warriors didn't get this shit. They got called the best team of all time, and they did have the most regular season wins of all time. But people were still like, "Oh no doubt, this is the greatest team ever." All this other stuff, and now you have a team that is literally matching the best Warriors teams who won the finals, and it's the complete opposite. It's literally like night and day from the Warriors discourse that I had to sit through for those 5 years that they were on that run. And so that's where it really like drives me nuts. I think it's literally like, and I'm not happy that it's the Celtics, but it's crazy that I feel like it's only happening because it was the Celtics. There's probably only like one other, it's probably the Lakers are the only other team that would get this treatment. It's like the Yankees, like the Cowboys, like teams that are not going to get credit for it. But man, you just got to look at it and like enjoy the greatness. What do you watch it for?
And what?
It's not to see things like this. When the league has this much history and all this shit, you want teams like this to come up to remind you that they can still. Is it good? Is the NBA as good as it used to be? All the old heads, like the league's not what it used to be. All you still have these teams that do this, like regardless of what the sport is, what the play is on the court.
And what sucks for the Celtics, I don't think individually any of their players are really like polarizing or unlikable. It's just because they're on the Boston Celtics. That's why they get hated. The problem
with Tatum for people is that he's not exciting and not quotable and not going viral. That he's very much Tim Duncan-esque in that way, where he's very boring. And they wanted to anoint him as next American superstar. Jason
I think Tatum, that's the reason.
He doesn't give a fuck. And that's what I think it is. That's why we're getting Anthony Edwards discourse coming in like, oh, he's the face of American basketball, all this other shit. Like you have.
I remember when people were saying Ant was better than Tatum? That was weird.
It was a weird 2 weeks.
That was a weird couple weeks.
People probably still are saying that. That's the craziest part, because that's the thing that's so wild to me, is they're still gonna find ways to discredit him. It's like, dude, like you can't punish him because he doesn't have really
who's the first? We gotta look at odds of who the first writer or podcaster is to do like their ranking of best NBA players next year, and they put Jaylen Brown over Jason Tatum. It's coming.
Nick Wright.
It's coming from like half the people at least.
Nick Wright, Colin Coward,
Kendrick Perkins.
Perk for sure.
Perk, absolutely. Stephen A. Smith probably already has done it. He's probably already done it.
Stephen A's going to put Tatum like third behind Porzingis or something.
Did you guys see Nick Wright on Freezing Cold Takes? He got exposed.
What did he say this time?
On May 27th, he tweeted, "By the time the Celtics adjust to playing real playoff basketball, the Mavs are going to be up 3-1."
Well, Nick, tough. And this is why, as you know, Tony, I wanted the Mavs to win more than anyone. And I talked myself into that they could win this series, even though I don't know if I ever truly believed it. But this is why people need to like stop using like 1 game sample sizes. You got just watch. You could just tell who's been watching, who's been locked in the whole season, and who's only watched, a couple games on ESPN and the playoff series. This is what drives me nuts. It's like if the Boston Celtics were an okay team in the regular season and they had that Eastern Conference run, you could make that argument. What did I say last week? Even when I said I wanted the Mavs to win, and I was like, oh, the Mavs are going to take this. What did I say? There was only one team the Mavs played after the deadline that really just ran them out of the gym. It was the Boston Celtics. Yeah, it was only a couple games after the moves, right?
Yeah.
Gafford only played 4 minutes. They didn't really have their lineup structured completely, but Kyrie was healthy. Luka was healthy. You know what? When people are the Timberwolves beat the Mavs 3-1 in the regular season, guess what? The only game that the Timberwolves lost was that Kyrie and Luka was healthy. When the Oklahoma City Thunder lost to the Mavs, guess who was healthy? Luka and Kyrie. Guess who they couldn't beat when they were both healthy? The Boston Celtics. And it was like, it wasn't even just that example against the Mavs. It was like what were doing all year long, Dunny. The Celtics team was just beating the piss out of everyone all year long. And people were just ignore. And it's like, oh, yeah, Andrew Nembhard scored 25. They're not good. What?
And something else that just makes this even more of a historic run and really storybook ending, poetic, whatever you want to call it. It is truly crazy. It feels like it's almost like a part of like a made up sports movie. But Kyrie being 0-13 since he stomped on the Celtics logo is just crazy. Man.
Some people
it really
don't
is.
believe in karma. But there are just so many examples in the world where I'm like, you got to just pay attention, and that has to be one of them.
And he's disappeared in games in Boston. He has disappeared when he plays in Boston,
and he's talking shit for what?
That's the weirdest part. And then like he does like that weird thing where he's like half talking shit too, because he was like, well, what do you guys expect? They're the best team in basketball all year, which it's fine to have those thoughts, but I think as the opposing team, and at that point they were only down 0-2, like it's kind of a weird time to say those things. And I thought his comments after game one were a little weird too. I'll give him credit. He was fucking unreal in some parts of the game last night, but I even think there were some moments last night where he didn't really show up. And
he forced it when Luka went out. It was too much. Kyrie just he was just doing too much. I mean, there were some nice plays that he made there, but the one drive they got bailed out on, I think Lively got an offensive rebound or something, but he could have kicked out to a wide open PJ who was right on the wing there, and then there was somebody else in the corner too, and he just went into like four guys and just put up like a lefty layup that ended up short. And he did that a lot. He hasn't looked comfortable at all.
No, he hasn't. And I think that's where I will say from the Mavs side, almost sometimes too much pressure with Kyrie and Luka, especially obviously after Luka fouled out. It was just everything was on Kyrie. You got to have
hold on. Did you think it was going to be a foul in the moment? Because I really thought they were going to let Luka stay in that game.
I thought they were going to let him stay in because it was Luka, even though I think it probably should have been a foul. The only thing I'll get mad at, and I'd never want to blame the refs, but if you're calling a foul on that, and you're not calling a foul where Luka and Jaylen Brown essentially played rugby.
Bro, how did no one get called?
A couple possessions before. That's the only thing that pisses me off, right? This is the only thing that pisses me off. And Dunny, I think you can attest that the first three quarters, the refs weren't really calling much, and it was for both sides. And I was like, you know what? Luka clearly got hit by Drew Holiday on that one. It's fine because Tatum got hit on the one dunk attempt.
That dunk attempt.
Yeah.
It was literally all arm.
Right.
You could see the ball like shift out of his hands. He still ended up finishing it.
But
that was a crazy one.
Wasn't even the shots too. Is when they were guarding him at half court. Brown's pushing off. Luka's pushing off. Like it's physical basketball. Physical basketball. I'm like, all right, we have seen it for 3 quarters. You have set the tone. Right? You have set the tone that we're playing physical basketball. You can't change with 6 minutes to go in the fourth. You just can't. You can't change in the fourth quarter. And the thing that got me upset was that they were calling, and there was a couple stupid fouls Luka made. Like the one on Derek White was clearly a foul after the rebound. Dumb, It's like, well, like, what are you doing there? You're Luka, just get back. And Luka, like I said, I think got in his own head too, because when he doesn't start to get the calls, then he tries to bait them. And I don't know if you saw a lot of the times where the Celtics had, even though it wasn't Luka's official assignment to be the one to get back, he's falling on the floor trying to bait a foul on a three-pointer that Horford contested, on a three-pointer that Tatum contested, on a couple layups. And that's when Luka gets in his own head. It's like, dude, just play your game. You're the most gifted scorer in the world right now. Just play your game. Don't try to foul bait. But I think he got in his head so much they're not calling anything with foul baiting. Then he's like, fine. If they're going to do that to me, I'm going to play physical on defense, right? And I think that's what we saw. And next thing you know, the refs are blowing their whistle. And if they want to call it like that the whole game, that's fine. But I think there were a few regular season foul calls in the fourth quarter, and it led to Luka being fouled out, which I wasn't happy about. I think the charge, or him trying to draw a charge, was a foul. But the way it was going in the first 3 quarters, they weren't going to, I don't think that is called a blocking foul at that point. But you have that call. A minute ago, maybe 2 minutes ago, Jaylen Brown and Luka are legitimately playing rugby.
Yeah.
for
Bro,
a like
rolling into the bench. It was
dude,
crazy.
I mean, they're both like somersaulting over each other, and there's no call. There also was another play too. I think it was Tatum who went up for the shot. The ref has his hand halfway up to blow the
That's the
whistle.
dunk attempt we were talking about. Yeah.
And it pulls it back down. You have one with Luka going down, where the ref's watching, and he looks like he's going to call and doesn't call. It's like, all right, like I'm okay with that. I want the NBA Finals to be physical basketball. I do. I would much rather have them beat each other up than have it turn into a free throw contest. I think we can all agree on that as basketball fans. And Dunny, I don't think that it was lopsided one way or the other in terms of how they were calling the game. I'm going to give all credit to the refs in games 1 through 3, where I don't think it has been lopsided to one team or the other in any of the 3 games. No. However, in the fourth quarter, I just felt like they were calling regular season fouls again. And it was like, why are you?
Timing was weird. Yeah. Just specific calls were weird. The thing that I will say to that whole sequence, because I don't know if you remember like the half arm bar, but that it ended up turning into a Jaylen Brown hook on the baseline.
Yes.
And this wasn't the charge or block play. This wasn't the at half court play that wasn't called. This was the baseline where they both fell over a couple plays before the charge block. I think the craziest thing to me and all the other people who were at the watch party at the TD Garden, we were all so confused because during commercial and like getting towards commercial, they really wouldn't you couldn't really hear the broadcast. They would just kind of go away and they would play like whatever Celtics stuff they were doing.
Gotcha.
So on the baseline play, we all thought that the Mavericks were challenging that one.
Right.
And so we were like, oh my God. And then I was like,
it wasn't even clear on TV, Dunny, because I thought the Mavs were challenging too.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought before when they went to the commercial.
And then they didn't, gave the ball to the Celtics. There was a foul on Luka. Then all of a sudden that play was, only a few, probably like 30 seconds later that we have that one. And then they challenged that one. And I was like, okay, well, the Celtics, the only thing I thought, and I don't even think this was lopsided, I think just as a Celtics fan in that moment, we were all surprised that both calls went our way. And I think they were the correct ones, but they were definitely two challenging calls to make.
The crazy thing about those is that, and I won't reference this windy rant too much on this show, don't worry. But the one thing he mentioned was Luka yelling to challenge that call. And I think that's why he was pissed. And they had more of a case on the first one, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think they would have won the first one.
You can see Jaylen close his arm. Even it's just a split second, and it's only something you can see in slow motion, but you can see him do it. Like, and I'm like, I remember I was sitting there, I'm watching my girlfriend. I'm like, I don't know, like he did kind of do it. Like, I don't know if I'd call it, but he did kind of grab it.
I thought
but the
that
charge
one was
a charge.
much more.
Like, charge is a block.
Me too.
Like,
I thought the baseline one was much more of a bang play, tougher call than the charge block. I thought Luka was sliding the foot. I think that's been called all regular season, all playoffs.
It was close though. It's not like it wasn't like if they would have came out,
especially real time. I think it's crazy they called it a block in real time because in real time it probably looked even more like a charge.
Yeah, no, I agree. And honestly, I don't want to say this because I hope it's never influenced, but I almost feel like, especially late in this game, and there's been other examples in previous games too, where Luka gets called for stuff that normally hasn't been called in the game. I think it's probably because he's just been complaining to them the whole game. And and to be honest with you, I wish something could happen. Maybe he's got to go, with Kyrie Irving on some nice retreat in the off season and clear his head, because when he is focused, exactly, when he's focused, when he's not trying to foul bait, his shots are going to go in. Like, that's when the Luka magic comes out. And I'm not going to say the Mavs would have won game 3 if he didn't foul out, but they had all the momentum. They had the crowd
I don't think it's that crazy to say, man.
As loud as it's ever been. And that's what I'm saying. And I think they were pretty much getting whatever they wanted at that point. Their defense was just playing well. And then guess what? You bring in Tim Hardaway, played 19 minutes, went 0 of 5 from the floor, 0 of 3 from 3, and was a minus 16.
Yeah, that's crazy, bro.
A minus 16 in 19 minutes.
That's
insanity. They didn't even call when the Celtics were trying to intensely foul, which, by the way, why? Just let Tim shoot. Just let Tim shoot.
Yeah.
But Jason Kidd be better. I'd rather you have pull Daniel Gafford off the bench and have him shoot a corner three than Tim Hardaway shoot an outside three. But none of this happens, I think, if Luka's not complaining the whole game, because then I don't think he gets those fouls called on him. I truly believe that Luka pisses the refs off so much, and they know that in the regular season, all right, we'll just tee him up, and he knows if he keeps running in his mouth, he's gone for the game. In the playoffs, they're like, not going to tee the stars up as much because this is the playoffs. I'm not going to be the ref, who's going to tee a guy up in these type of moments. So they're just going to sit there. They're going to listen to it, hear it. And then we saw, and this isn't the only example. He didn't foul out in the other series, but in Minnesota against Oklahoma City, late game, he started to get these fouls. It's like, really? Like, we haven't really been calling that all game, but we're going to call it. And I truly believe it's because he's kind of been complaining to them every game, every possession. And I wish there was a world, and there was a world. There were 2 games against the Thunder where he just said, I'm not going to worry about the refs. I don't know what changed, right? But I do think sometimes Luka has to understand, especially in the playoffs, that you're not going to get the regular season calls. You're just not. So just forget about it and get back on defense. Ignore it, because you're not helping your case by complaining, because they're not going to change how they call it. And I don't like blaming refs, and I'm not going to blame the refs. I'm actually going to give them credit, where I think the reffing in this NBA Finals has been fantastic. In the sense that they've been consistent to both sides, and they've been consistent to what they've called, pretty much besides the final 8 minutes in the fourth quarter of last night. But I truly believe that most of the reason why those fouls were called is because Luka's complaining at him the whole time.
I don't think it's off base at all, because the stars, you have to have a relationship with these refs, and if you're the guy that's just grading on them the whole time, it's not going to go that's the part of the game he hasn't learned yet. He hasn't learned the game within the game in the NBA and being a star. And I think that, as you're saying, really has hurt him in this series and the team. What were you going to say, Donnie?
I was just going to say that I lost it now. Steve, remind me what you were saying a second ago.
I was just talking about the reffing and how it's been consistent. All right, go ahead. I'm not going to let you lose it again.
Sorry, I was prepping my next question to ask you about the Mavs, but I want to draw another comparison, and I don't want Luka fans to think that this is a dig at them at all. And I know that you are a rational basketball mind, so I know you'll understand what I'm saying. I really do think Luka is himself, not this Mavericks team, is similar to the Celtics a couple of years ago. Again, I know I made that comparison with them playing the Warriors in 2022, but Luka, with the foul thing and the complaining, reminds me of Tatum from a couple of years ago. I think he suffered from the same thing. I think Tatum still complains here and there. I think he probably thinks he doesn't get a fair whistle. I think that is the case some games. But a couple of years ago, Tatum was way worse with it. He was still a younger guy, not as established, which I know Luka is probably more established than Tatum at this point. I know he has the All-NBAs. I know how incredible he is. I think he's a better player than Tatum to this point. But I do think there's a similar thing where they complain, they end up getting a worse whistle down the stretch because of how much they're complaining. If you just focus on playing, which I think Brown and Tatum have done a good job of just kind of realizing that's what they need to do, realizing neither of them need to be the best player, just focus on winning. I think if Luka had that mindset last night, maybe he doesn't foul out and, just kind of going into what you're saying.
We could have a series. We could have a series if that's the case. And I'm not going to blame Luka because the Mavs aren't here without Luka and they aren't in that game without Luka. Like anyone trying to say, especially Windhorst, I might block him everywhere. But anyone trying to say that, Luka has to learn what winning is like, the same people that a week ago were like, oh my God, look at what he's doing in going through the West. Like it's just so inconsistent.
Windy did change up his tune crazy because I listened to the whatever I don't even know what his podcast is called, but I listened to it decently, and he was praising. He's been praising Luka all playoffs. It was very
media personalities. They want to make it all about them. They want to make it all about them.
It was a very sudden turn, it was like a very sharp, whoa,
Windy probably had $50K on the Mavs to win the game. That's what that rant was probably about.
Honestly, I hope that's not the case. Like, literally, that is what it seemed like.
Yeah.
It was so weird, just like how aggressive it was.
It was
Because
so pointed, yeah.
I think everyone had the same thought to a certain degree. Like, yeah, Luka needed to be better. He needed to be more
Yeah.
poised in those moments.
Right.
But to throw that amount of blame and the way he was doing it was crazy. And
Insane.
just to compare him to the set, like we're talking about how good the Celtics team is, how complete 1 through 5, how good they all are offensively and defensively, and then to use Luka's mistakes down the stretch and try to compare them to the Celtics as a whole was just weird. How he's like, maybe one day they'll be walking down the winner's tunnel. If he can learn how to clean all this up or
Like,
something along those lines. It was just strange.
can I just say something too? Like, I get it. We're in the NBA Finals right now, so it's like, yeah, you want to win the thing. This is already a very successful season for the Dallas Mavericks. This was
Yes.
a team that was in the lottery last year. The lottery. People said Luka and Kyrie couldn't work. Everyone was talking about how good the Western Conference was this year. People didn't even have the Mavs in their playoff predictions.
Yeah.
They win the West. This was a team that was an afterthought before the deadline. They make the moves, they win the West. Yeah, they're going to come up short to one of the best teams we've seen in a long time. It happens. We say it all the time. Only one team can win the championship. There's only one team each year that can win the championship. That doesn't mean that there were 29 other failed teams. Obviously, yeah, you want to win championship. I understand it. And especially when you get to the NBA Finals, the entire world's just going to have their eyes on you. But the people that are just acting like this is just like just a choke, like a fall. Like, it's a dude, like, also, too, like, we just forget, like, the Mavs' only chance of winning game 2 was because Luka was 32, 11, and 11 on 60% shooting, where no one else was really giving him anything. Where game 1, he was the only one who was even, like, looking like he knew how to play offense or was prepared for the NBA Finals. Like, that's where it gets me so frustrated because, like I said, these media personalities make it all about them. And it's like, dude, you just got to look at the bigger picture here. It's like the Mavs had a great season, and I am very happy with the Mavs season. It sucks because you get this far, right? And you're like, oh, we have a chance to get a championship. Luka has a chance to get a championship at 25 years old and really put his name up there as one of the best basketball players we've seen in a long, long time. And you know what? Sometimes you got to come up short. Sometimes you got to learn how it feels to lose on the biggest stage. Donnie knows that as well as anyone with this Boston Celtics score, with this Boston Celtics team. 6 Eastern Conference Finals, 2 NBA Finals appearances. 1 win away from your first, but you've learned, like, Tatum has learned what it feels like to lose on the big stage. Brown has felt like what it is to lose, like, on the big stage. Luka Doncic, yeah, he's lost. He's never been a favorite in any playoff series he's been in. He's always been the betting odds underdog. And so, it just comes with time, comes with experience. This is a Mavs team that was, as great as they played post-deadline, was put together post-deadline.
Yep.
Luka and Kyrie have barely over a year of playing together. Like, this is not just saying that, oh, they fell apart, they choked, like he let his team down. That's wild that Windhorst would say he was letting them down. He's the only reason you got here.
Yeah, and he's the only reason, last night was difficult because Kyrie actually showed up and he had 35 points. I don't even think necessarily you could say he had a better game than Luka. I think maybe you could argue that, but even in games 1 and 2, the only reason that their games 1 and 2 they had a chance was also because of Luka.
Right.
And even, you can knock Luka for, only having 1 assist in game 1. The rest of his guys haven't been hitting shots all series. So the fact that he was able to get 11 assists in any of these games is crazy because no one else is hitting. And that was the question I wanted to ask about the roster. And also, I completely agree with you. I think this is a huge success as a season for the Mavs. I also think it's good news going forward because it's kind of easy what you have to fix, right? Like they unlocked something with Lively and Gafford. PJ Washington was amazing addition. We know all of that.
He's so good.
And now they just need a few of those pieces. Like can't have We know how Steve feels about it
Oh
now.
Tim's not on the team next year. Maxi Kleber better not be on the team next year because what is Maxi Kleber there to do? What is he there to do? He is not there to pass up open looks. He's there to be a stretch, play defense, and shoot threes. He did neither.
That three that Jaylen Brown blocked into the third row was.
I don't want to talk about it.
No,
the best part was game 2, the end-to-end, coast-to-coast run by Maxi Kleber. I'm like, bro, what is happening?
Or how about last night? He had a wide open look and he kicks it to the corner. Maxi, what are you there to do? What are you on this team to do? Yeah, he's you know what he is? And I'll go back to who Dunny. I think it was Nick Collison. You said no, it was Zach Collins. It was Zach Collins where Dunny said, "I can only picture that guy in street clothes." That's what I want Dwight Powell to be. You're there for the locker room. The players like you. You're there for practice, but you're just there to wear street clothes. You're never going to play. Now, Jaden Hardy, I do think there's potential there, and he would give the Mavs something off the bench that they don't have, and that's another guy who can handle the ball. I love PJ Washington. I love Derek Jones, but these are not guys who are going to dribble the ball up. They're not guys who are going to run the offense. So PJ Washington had a couple good assists, but it was on a one dribble, pass. That one pass to Lively was great, but he's not a ball handler. Kyrie and Luka are. Also, Jason Kidd, too. I swear to God, Jason Kidd, if I ever see one more game where PJ Washington or Derek Jones is taking the ball, or Dante Exum, I guess Dante Exum, fine, I'll give him a pass, taking the ball up the court, I'm going to lose my mind when Luka and Kyrie are standing there in the background.
Yeah.
You give it. That's where you had the turnover in game 2. PJ, they're like, we'll just face guard him at half court. He's like, I got to throw it back to Luka. And then Luka's like, what are you doing? We have to cross half court in a second. Heaves it. Like, that's the little things there where I think that's where Jason Kidd struggles as a coach, just little things like that. But
let me ask you this. What did you think of playing 11 guys last night in the game? I know it's all different with Luka fouling out, and I assume most of it is desperation, right? You're trying to throw some things at the wall and see what sticks.
I think so. I think it was Jason Kidd seeing like who's quote unquote the hot hand tonight, right? Who's the guy we can kind of rely on? Because that's kind of been the Mavs story all year long. Is these bench guys? You don't really have set bench minutes, kind of like the Celtics do, or a lot of other teams do. There are teams like similar to the Mavs that just have a bunch of guys where it's like, all right, who's the hot one tonight? Who are we going to go with? Outside of obviously Derek Lively's kind of your staple coming off the bench, and then I guess Josh Green gets his fair share of minutes too. I wish they'd play Green more. He's not the best shooter in the world, but he did make his only 3 attempt last night. But Josh Green's probably the best defender of those kind of guys who get rotated off the bench. And also, too, the one thing I'll say about Josh Green, he plays 150%, man. He is hustling to everything, and that's what you need against the Celtics. I wish they would have played him more. Jaden Hardy came out early in the game, and then you never saw him. I didn't understand what that was. Dante Exum played a couple minutes. Like, I don't
that one
get
dunk on Tatum.
Yeah, and then he never played again. It's like, all right, like what are we doing here? It's the playoffs, though. I always have said this. You got to shrink the bench in the playoffs. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to have that 8-man rotation, maybe 9. I like to keep it at 8, where you're comfortable with the guys and you can play. And I wish it would be Lively. I wish it would be Josh Green and probably Dante Exum, Jaden Hardy. Tim Hardaway should never see the floor. Tim Hardaway playing 19 minutes last night was one of the.
Let me do this exercise then for next season. I think I know who the 2 guys that you would take off this roster are, especially if we have to pick 2 out of the 11 that played last night. But I'm letting you take 2 guys off this roster out of the 11 guys that played. Let's do that. You have to take 2 guys out, and then you can replace with any guy in the NBA who comes off the bench. It doesn't have to be realistic that the Mavs get, but if you want to make it somewhat realistic, a bench player to add to this team. It can be a bench that you slip into the starting lineup if you want.
You can.
So can I tell you my unrealistic dream? First off, my unrealistic dream is to bully the Brooklyn Nets again. Give them about 3-4 of these bench guys, get Mikal Bridges, and move Derek Jones Jr. to the bench. Okay, that's the unrealistic dream. That's the unrealistic dream because he's the exact guy that
would be unreal.
that the Dallas Mavericks need. But if I'm looking at this team, Dunny, and if we're talking about like getting someone for the bench specifically, I don't necessarily know if they need to go outside of what they have if it takes a lot to give guys up, right? I would love to get rid of Hardaway, love to get rid of Maxi Kleba. I don't really think you're going to get anything for those guys. Maybe you get, kind of a journeyman, role player there. But I think Jaden Hardy has potential, and I think Omax has potential as guys who can get more minutes next year, guys that are young that you kind of want, to build your young core together. I think that's how you get better. I don't think bringing in like a 32-year-old for this Mavs bench is really going to solve anything.
Yeah.
I think that we've seen flashes of Hardy. We've seen – I really like Omax's potential, and I know he hasn't played much in the NBA, but he was really, really good in the G League, and we've seen potential there. I like Josh Green's effort. That's kind of the direction I'd rather them go than try to get someone for the bench. If they were to get someone in the starting lineup, I think that's where Derek Jones Jr. kind of moves to that bench. Mm-hmm. But with the Mavs, it's really you're a young team. I'm curious to hear your name, and I'll hear you out. But this is the thing. You're a young team. I think Derek Lively is going to become a starter next year. He's been developing an outside shot in practice too, which is huge if he can get that, because that's where he has the edge on Gafford. He'll have size, and then he'll have the ability to score just from besides just under the rim. And then you have, a guy like Gafford coming off the bench, a guy like Josh Green, Jaden Hardy. And then if they can get someone where maybe Derek Jones Jr. can come off the bench, or even someone of his caliber where you can kind of mix and match, that's where I think they'll be great. But I'm interested to hear your name.
I'll give you my name that I love for the Mavs. One thing you said, Josh Green, and I agree. I think he played 150% hustle play. I think his best play, or maybe smartest play of the night last night, was actually when he wasn't hustling. Him not jumping with Jaylen Brown on that down the middle dunk attempt. He jumped a little bit and kind of just leaned back. It was like, nah, I'm all set with that.
Sometimes you gotta let Jaylen Brown when he's ready to throw it down. Steam, you just gotta get out of the way. You're not trying to give him 3 points instead of 2.
He's put too many centers on posters. I think Josh Green was like, I'm all set.
Jaylen Brown's dunking in game is so underrated.
I think he's the best in the league. But
because he's so good at getting the in the lane, the perfect spot in the lane.
And it's almost like he wants to put his shoulder into the guy's chest first before he even thinks about dunking. He's like, I'm making contact with you first, just so you know I'm here. And by the time you realize I'm here, I'm going to already be dunking.
Right.
But the name for the Mavs, it's a guy who's been traded twice now since he won an NBA championship just a year ago.
Okay.
It's I think he would probably be a starter, and this would probably be where Derek Jones goes. And I don't know what the package would be, but I don't think it would be too difficult to get him. And this guy's Bruce Brown. I think Bruce Brown would be a pretty damn good fit for this Mavs team. He can do a little bit of everything. He can handle the ball. I know you probably want Luka and Kyrie doing that, like you said, for the most part. But he can create on his own. He makes other guys better. I think he obviously has the championship pedigree with Denver. And I thought he had found a home in Indiana. Then they trade him as part of the Pascal deal. Now he's in Toronto, and who knows what the hell they're doing. I have no idea what they're doing. I don't know why he came to mind when I was first thinking about this, and I feel like Bruce Brown could be an interesting fit for the Mavs next year.
And I will give you Karis LeVert. I don't hate that. You can have
that. There you go.
I'll give you another
one Karis LeVert.
Yeah. I don't want Karis LeVert. I'll give you another kind of it's not as crazy as Mikal Bridges. It's I guess it's still a little unrealistic, but I think this
Kevin Durant
a perfect hit. No. DeAndre Hunter.
Ooh, I like that.
I think he gives the Mavs what they would need. He can shoot from the outside. He plays fantastic defense. He's got great length. And he's someone, too, he's not really going to handle the ball too much, but he's very comfortable in the catch and shoot.
What if they –
That's what you need. You need a guy like that who's, very good defense, but also –
a couple better shooters.
What if they just get LeBron James?
I've seen people say stuff like that. I'll
He's
tell
talking
you.
up Kyrie. He
I'll
loves Jason Kidd.
tell you what. Oh boy, I'll have to make sure
That
I
would be an
delete
emotional
every
roller
bad
coaster.
word I ever said about LeBron James since my existence. If
We'd be
that's
joining
the case.
forces against Dunny
Oh
next
my
year. It'd
bro,
be
that
great.
would be. I'll tell you what, that would be such a
It'd
fun
be-
team to watch. But I've seen people say that. I to be completely honest with you guys, though, I don't think the Mavs need to go get someone. I think they develop with what they have. You cut the shit crust off the sandwich. Hardaway's gone. Kleber's gone. I don't want to see him. But I think you grow with what you have because, like we talked about, post deadline, this is the second best team in the NBA after the Boston Celtics. This team was on like a 65 win pace post deadline, and your average age is 25.9 years old.
They do need a plan for a secondary creator because Kyrie Irving will be 33 by the playoffs next year. And I love Kyrie like as a basketball player. You know how
Jake's always on
this. I feel about the small guards, and age 33, it's just a more chance of it being worse than it is in age 32. That's all I'm saying. And this run hasn't been, at least once we got to the finals here, hasn't been impressive, particularly. So that's what worries me. That's the only thing I would
agree
for. But there's guys out there that you could target and put alongside them because Kyrie clearly doesn't need to play on the ball. And I think that would be the benefit for him later in his career is to be off the ball more and more and almost be like Kyrie could have like a Ray Allen-esque second half of his career where he's not getting to the bucket as much, but he's just gonna hit 40% from three the whole time, and you have to respect him from out there. And can still get to the rim when he needs to, but is never going to be going to look for it. But then you need another guy next to them too. But maybe they hope PJ can do that too. Like PJ Washington's still very young. That's part of the game he needs to develop is his, driving and putting the ball on the floor a little bit. So maybe
I think he's got so much potential. I really do think PJ Washington has so much potential to be kind of that third big three for the Mavs, where obviously you have Luka, Kyrie. But I really do think PJ Washington could become a complete scorer where he could give you 20 any night. I truly believe that. His size, his athleticism, his ability to hit open shots, he just needs to put it all together and be a little more consistent.
Could PJ Washington be the Michael Jordan of Tobias Harris's?
I think so.
I mean, but as much hate as Tobias gets, let's be honest, he's a better scorer than PJ at this point in their career.
That's why I'm saying, could he be? He's not right now.
I get where you're going with that. But I'm not gonna go out here and say PJ Washington is a complete scorer as Tobias Harris right now. As much hate as Tobias Harris gets, Tobias Harris is a complete scorer. PJ Washington isn't that right now, but he's had multiple 40-point games.
Is that a name for the Mavs?
Tobias?
He's going to be available.
Tobias
I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it at all.
As a fourth option?
No, I really wouldn't hate that. I think that kind of fits the
who would really
area I want to go.
And I don't think they'll be able to afford him. Seeing DeMar on this team for 2 years would be fun. Because then Kyrie, that's how you take Kyrie off the ball, and you have shooters around DeMar. Like he'd have enough shooting around him.
They'd have to give up so much.
They would have the most mid-range scoring in NBA history if they would have those three guys.
Yeah, they would have.
That's true.
Like
sorry, JVC said stop.
Yeah, JVC. Hey, you know what? We mentioned the Bulls. JVC.
No, there's one team who's giving DeMar $43 million, and it's the Chicago Bulls. There's nobody else who's going to do that. So you're fine, JVC.
San Antonio Spurs reunion.
Listen. If the Spurs get DeMar and Darius Garland and Victor Wembanyama, although the Cavs said they're not trading Darius Garland now,
if we're going the DeMar route, we've already talked crazy. We've mentioned DeMar, LeBron, Mikal Bridges, Tobias Harris. We've already gone crazy.
And
but another one that is crazy. It's on the lower end of crazy compared to the names we've mentioned. Trailblazers are doing a full rebuild. Jeremy Grant. He's 30 years old. He's not going to be there for the rebuild. That would be the perfect fit. I mean, that would be the perfect fit. But like I said, to be completely honest with you guys, I don't like yeah, you clean up short in the finals, and everyone's gonna panic to begin with, right? They're gonna be like, "What do we got to do? What do we got
It's
to
not a
fix?"
major move that the Mavs
I
need.
don't
No.
think they need a major move, man. Develop the talent you have. Hardy's shown flashes. Omex has shown flashes. I think Lively's going to be very, very good next year. I think he's going to start, and I think he's someone who could give you 15 and like 12 with a couple blocks next year. I truly believe that. I love PJ Washington, and he loves the Mavs. Like, and let's be honest, he hasn't had a good NBA Finals, but Derrick Jones Jr. had a really good playoffs. And if worst case scenario is we go into next season with Derrick Jones Jr. as our 3, am I really that upset? No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there won't be much change. I think it will just be a new crop of role players. Obviously, the Cleavers, the Hardaway is probably gone, like we already
Hardaway,
mentioned.
get him to Miami now. If you could trade players before a series ended, I would get him, his father's comments off this team, put him in Miami. I can't do it, dude. I can't do it with Tim Hardaway anymore. He's so bad at basketball. He's so bad.
Are you guys cool if I do a little Celtics victory lap here?
Yeah,
For the last couple minutes.
go ahead.
Have some stats, have some things to say. Obviously, if we're all assuming the Celtics handle business in how many games we don't know yet.
Before your victory lap.
Yeah.
Because we've never mentioned this scenario. If the Mavs have the first ever 4-3 comeback in NBA Finals history,
this podcast will be over.
No, I am offering that when that happens, as soon as the game's over, I will drive through the night to Boston. I will take you down from the TD Garden. All right, I will get you in the car and we will drive to the nicest seafood restaurant, and it's on me. And it's on me. Whatever you want, unlimited drinks and whatever you want. If that happens, if it is 4-3, Dunny, I'm driving to Boston. I'm making sure you are in a good mental state, and I'm feeding you with as much Boston Harbor seafood as possible and as much drinks as possible. Because Dunny, we still need you. We still need you. Yeah. I don't want to have basketball next year with no Dunny. Go ahead, take your lap.
I love that offer. I can't even imagine this world in which that would happen. I would lose my mind, my soul, everything that's ever been important to me. Yeah, that would be tough. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Where do I begin?
Oh boy.
Jake mentioned something earlier about possible passing of the torch 2 years ago in the finals, where the Warriors dynasty seemingly ended. They could be competitive, and if Clay doesn't leave and if Draymond doesn't leave, maybe they have one more crack at it this year. But the crazy thing about that is these guys are all locked up for the future and for kind of a while. Like Drew Holiday, three more years, and at age 34, Drew Holiday might be the only guard who defies your
he doesn't
logic
count as
of
a small guard. He's a big guard.
He's a linebacker guard playing point guard. But Drew Holiday, age 34, we have Drew locked up for 3 more years. Jaylen Brown is locked up for 5 more years. Tatum is going to sign his supermax, be locked up for 5 more years. Porzingis is locked up for 3 years. And now Celtics owner Wyc Grousbeck said that, he's going to pay whatever it takes to get Derek White locked up on an extension. So this starting 5, I also assume Al Horford probably retires after this year. So obviously, that's going to be a loss. But this, yeah, I don't know. But he looks great.
Playing, man.
38 years old. He looks fantastic.
Yeah.
But you have this group, who is clearly putting on one of the best regular seasons, then postseason runs the league has seen in a while, if not ever. And they seemingly have the same group locked up. So it's just that in itself is just exciting to think about. I talked about how it's poetic earlier that Kyrie Irving is 0-13 after stomping on Lucky. I think something even more poetic and probably doesn't even get talked about enough is just Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, man. Like them both going in back-to-back drafts, the same pick, both picks traded for. You're in this spot. You get these two unique kind of hybrid wings that weren't really the prototype at the time, but now are the prototype of the NBA of who you want playing on the wings on your team. These two guys who are very different, but also very similar on the court at the same time. And just thinking about a guy like Jaylen Brown, who came into the league, and one of his main negative things towards him was that he couldn't shoot. And then last night in a 2-point game, he hits a double clutch mid-range jump shot, nothing but nylon to kind of seal that game 3 victory. Like both of them, just how far they've come. Tatum, we talked about it, all the criticism. This is a guy who has been, raising a son on his own, obviously, with the help of his parents, but as a single father since he was 19 years old, also while taking all this pressure being in the NBA and being in the spotlight. And is he top 5? Is he not top 5? Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum last night were the first duo with at least 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in an NBA Finals game. They have all these duo records together. That was kind of mind-boggling to me. The fact that, like, Pippen and Jordan never done that. Steph and Clay have never done that. D-Wade and Shaq, Kobe and Shaq, LeBron and D-Wade. It's crazy that no one has ever done that. And Chris Forsberg, a local Celtics, he's a beat writer. He's on the local broadcast channel as well. He said something interesting, a few hours ago. It was basically just that once, which we all assume is going to happen, no one's ever come back from 3-0. But if the Celtics end up finishing the job and the Jays become NBA champions, like they're up there with the all-time great duos just from getting this one championship, just from getting over the hump. They dealt with all the media blasting and the bullshit over the last few years for this, and they have a chance to do that. More on Jaylen Brown. I'm kind of all over the place here, just kind of gushing about this team. It's hard to stay on one track, but this was interesting. I saw on StatMuse today, most finals points in the 2020s. Jimmy Butler with 265, which shout out him. He's number 1. Jaylen Brown 214, Giannis 211. We know the Bucks run that they went on to win their championship. Like Jaylen Brown has been an afterthought to Jason Tatum in the past. He's, was the talk of trade rumors for, it seems like 3 straight years. He stayed resilient. He worked on his game. He was called overpaid this whole last summer. Came out as one of the best players in the regular season, in my opinion. I think it was crazy that he didn't get an All-NBA spot. One of the best players in the playoffs. Now probably the best player in the NBA Finals. He's looking like he's going to win that Bill Russell Finals MVP award.
He should.
Yeah, it's just you can't say enough about the Jays. You can't say enough about Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. This whole Celtics team, it's really incredible. I'm gonna victory lap a lot harder once they finally do this thing. So sorry if anyone's annoyed by this now, and I'll have a list of people that maybe owe the Celtics an apology or just that I'm gonna go at for a few minutes next episode. Hopefully, if the Celtics get it done, that is. And then last thing, I do have a Drew Holiday stat because I feel like there's one thing, I understand. And Jake, I think you put it perfectly. Like the Celtics and the Lakers, they're just going to deal with this stuff. Like a lot of 80% of the hate towards this team is coming from just them being the Boston Celtics. Yeah. And as a sports fan, as someone who grew up rooting for Boston sports, I can, 1, appreciate that, and 2, just completely understand that. It's like, okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I would be annoyed by this too. Just like how people were annoyed at the San Antonio Spurs, people getting sick of the Warriors on their run. It's similar. So I understand that, but I feel like the one thing that people have held in common, even if people don't like the Celtics, is Drew Holiday and just him kind of being amazing in these playoffs and also the NBA Finals. He might be second in Finals MVP voting because he's been unreal. I saw this stat last night, and I had to share it with you guys. Drew Holiday in the NBA Finals, he's a plus 35, team high, 13 assists, 0 turnovers. Holiday's now played 134 minutes since his last turnover in the third quarter of Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals.
That's
so
crazy.
yeah, that's it. Just wanted to talk about my guys, the Jays, give Drew a little love, and just kind of put it into perspective how good the Celtics team is, and they, seemingly aren't going anywhere with how Brad Stevens has been able to put this roster together and then also hold it together. And it doesn't even seem like they're worried about the second apron, because I think Derek White's about to get a bag this summer as well.
Why did it take June for Sam Hauser to realize, oh, I'm just going to play great again? That wasn't nice. That wasn't nice.
Thank you, Steve, because that was the other thing. Sam Hauser is on one of the best deals in the NBA. 3 years, $5.6 million.
That's absurd.
He's not even making a full $2 million a year, and this is a guy who shot 3 or 4 from 3 in the NBA Finals last night in a Game 3. Sam Hauser, he's no defensive stopper or anything. He had some great possessions on Luka in this series as well. Some huge rebounds. Like, it's just crazy what Brad Stevens has been able to do. Pritchard, he hasn't even been shooting well in these finals. I thought he's played great, and this is a really special group, and I think the world's starting to learn that.
I'm learning it. Even though I knew it for a few years, I'm learning it firsthand.
Yeah. But that's it for me, man. I'm very just, happy, excited, nervous, feeling a little weird all at the same time. But it's an exciting spot to be as a sports fan. Celtics, mean more to me than a lot of things in life, and then definitely my favorite sports team by far.
We'll be talking Sunday Red Zone in the Happy Hour Hoops group chat for everyone listening. We'll be talking Sunday Red Zone. Jake and I'll be like, "Oh, did you see that game?" And Dunny will be locked into a 3:30 p.m. Celtics Hornets camp, and it's just like, "Oh, sorry, fellas, I missed the end of that game. I was watching the Celtics." And I'm like, "Wait, it's like the fourth game of the year." They're playing the Hornets. They're up 38-15, and all of a sudden I go on Twitter to see Dunny like sharing the highlights and everything. It's like, no, but it's true. You've been as locked into the Celtics as anyone, at least since I've known you. So a quick question to you, Dunny. They're up 3-0. Mm-hmm. What are you doing when they celebrate? Because I know as a Boston fan, you haven't really celebrated a lot of championships before. I know it's tough being a Boston fan. You only had a couple of 3 World Series with the Red Sox since we've been alive. The Patriots, Super Bowls. I know it's tough. Oh, sorry, my bad. I forgot about the Stanley Cup. Silly me. What are you doing to celebrate this one?
So the plan right now, actually, one of my best friends lives in Georgia now. He's actually coming home for a month, and he lands tomorrow.
Wow.
And he hit me up. Perfect. It's perfect timing. He was like, "Can I come to your place? Can I stay with you the first night?" I'm like, "Yeah." He was like, once it started to get closer, we realized it's going to be Game 4. And when it was only 2-0, he texted me and was like, "Hey man, like, don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but like, that could be the closing game or potentially closing game." So our plan right now, since we are up 3-0, it might have been different if we had or if the Celtics had lost last night. But our plan is, as soon as he gets here, as soon as I get out of work, we're going to try to go downtown, get a spot at one of my favorite bars, probably Greatest Bar or Banners, post up there for the day because that's what you're going to need to do to kind of hold the spot and hopefully watch from there. And then both of those bars are like very close, right outside the TD Garden. And I assume that's when all hell will break loose if the Celtics do indeed get it done on Friday night.
You think they'll get it done tomorrow night? You think it's over?
I have faith in this group, but in the same breath, I want to say I would be very surprised if a Luka and Kyrie team did get swept. I think enough of these games have been close enough. I think this will probably be the most pissed off Luka we've seen in the
I
playoffs.
would hope so.
We'll be going into game 4. So I'm not like over the moon confident. And the thing that we haven't even really talked about, which I think is kind of goes into me answering this question, is Porzingis might play. Like he has this
Yeah.
crazy rare injury where, he just came back from the calf. He was a huge difference maker in game 1. Game 2 obviously was about to be a huge difference maker. He was when he was in there.
Mhm.
Gets this crazy rare injury that no one really knows what to make of it. Doesn't play last night, and now there's rumblings that he might play game 4. I think if Porzingis wins, I feel, or if Porzingis plays, I feel very good about a Celtics win. But yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question, Steve. I could see it happening, but I don't think the Mavs are going to lay down.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I honestly, at this point, I think the Mavs take the 4th, and then the Celtics win at home. Which for you, Celtics winning at home would be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Just please, someone get Kyrie out of there quickly, like police escort, get him out of there, get him safe. If the Celtics do win, because that arena is going to be, I don't even want to know how they're going to react to Kyrie if they do win in Boston with him in the arena. But
especially after him saying, I'll be back game 5.
Yeah,
he probably wasn't anticipating, this being the rest of the series.
Yeah.
But
I don't think so. Sorry, Steve.
I think it's 4. You think it's done?
Yeah. I honestly don't think it's going to be particularly close tomorrow. I think it's going to be like, I think the comeback last night in the Luka
was the final
flip
push.
Out was like that was.
And it's crazy. The Celtics are undefeated on the road too, so there's
insane
back going against them too.
To be honest with you,
if it's a master class and if the Celtics maybe have a cold shooting game or something, like there's variables.
They've shot better on the road too, which is crazy too.
But it's just like the vibes right now. I just think
just get it over with at this point, right? Old Yeller, take me out back. Just get this game over with. It was a great season, like I said. Don't win one more just to lose by 30 in Boston.
Exactly.
But I mean, I'll still be rooting for him. I still want him to extend the series because, like I said, I don't want people to look back at this series and be like, "Wow, the Celtics just swept them," because I don't think that's fair to this Dallas Mavericks team and what they did, in the second half of this season.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I want it to be over because then I can really start pushing my LeBron to Cleveland agendas. And then next year we could have some fun. I will say the one thing that's very interesting. Our boy Windy keeps saying that the coaching searches, our boy Windy keeps saying that these coaching searches are tied together between the Lakers and the Cavs. He said it like on 3 different occasions now in the last week. And I'm like, what other reason could there be except because LeBron? Like, why else? What other fucking reason are the Lakers and Cavs coaching searches have anything to do with each other? It's got to be LeBron.
Yeah, you're right.
JJ Redick's going to end up the Cavs coach.
Do you think JJ Redick just coaches wherever Bron is? Is that the point?
And I think they're using the Lakers as one of these teams is getting used as leverage against the other. I don't know who is who, but the Lakers are either being used against the Cavs or vice versa by LeBron right now. I think that's what's happening. And Bron is saying, JJ's my coach, and I'll go wherever JJ goes. I'm bringing JJ with me.
Yeah.
I think he has a power play going. And Windy, like, why else would they be connected? Why else would these two things? It doesn't make any sense. They're two completely different teams and 2 completely different scenarios. And now there's all this talk about, Garland's staying, like, for sure. And who's a clutch sports athlete who said that they don't want to get traded or they want to get traded if, all these other scenarios? Darius Garland. Like, there's too many different things. So I want to have that's my LeBron corner of this. I'm on full watch after this series is done because I've gotten myself too excited at the notion of my last ditch Cavs team with LeBron.
I love
that. Next year will be very fun, Duddy. I will try
That'll be something. That'll be
craziness.
Something.
That is for sure.
If we have another Celtics Cavs rematch in the playoffs, but LeBron's on that team,
and I will say, I also wouldn't mind if it ends tomorrow, and I can say the Cavs are the last team to beat the Celtics in this playoff run. I'm just saying.
That would be nice as well.
Tip.
That's a nice little small victory that you get in the playoffs there. I like that.
I'm hanging the banner behind me. Beat the Celtics one game in 2024.
Didn't get swept. Raise the banner.
I love that. Yeah, honestly, Jake, shout out you, man, for just kind of quite literally on this pod, if you're watching on YouTube, sitting between me and Steve and just kind of letting us rant about our teams at different moments in these playoffs, and then obviously in the finals and leading up to certain games.
Regardless of how it goes the rest of the series and how Steve feels now about the Mavs and how opposite Dunny feels, you get this ride to the finals.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I have, even with just the Cavs and following LeBron. Like I do not take for granted watching my favorite player play in that many finals,
right.
My favorite team all those years, even if it's a lot of losses, it was still just so much fun. So you're gonna talk about this series and this, finals trips and everything, no matter what, and that's a blessing. It's fun. That's what makes it all worth it, man. Is to get to go through this. Steve, you're blessed, bro. Like that's what I'm saying. Like there's a lot of sports fans, all sports, that we were talking. You just mentioned it earlier, Steve. All these dudes complain about like, oh man, there's only one champion. If you lose in the Super Bowl, you try whatever. Like no, bro. Like enjoy that shit as much as you want.
There's no more games.
Sometimes the playoff run is heroic.
There's no more games this season, whether the Mavs win or lose. There are no more games, whether they win the finals or lose the finals. They're the top two teams.
Yep, I love that, Jake. That was very well put. It's a pleasure to be a basketball fan of these teams and just to be a basketball fan in general. General right now. Excuse me. We talk about it all year. We wait for the finals. Obviously, it's not as competitive as I think the average fan would want, but it's still, we still get the best of the best. And I think last night was a good example of that. The Celtics go up 20. All of a sudden, it was completely erased by the Mavs, and we had ourselves a bit of a thriller down the stretch. And shout out to another just awesome NBA season. And we're here, and Jake said me and Steve are blessed, and Jake has the Cavs LeBron fanfic that he can work on for the rest of the summer, and it's awesome, man. So that was a very long but necessary episode here. So thanks for hanging out with us, guys, and don't forget to download the Win Streaks app. 100 players win cash prizes every week, up to $2,000 with the Win Streaks app. It's simple. Pick teams to win, accumulate points, then win cash prizes. Win Streaks is 100% free to play. 5 picks a day, MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, college football, and basketball when they're back. And use our code HHH when you sign up. Start winning cash prizes today. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Follow Trainwreck Sports on all socials. Follow us at Happy Hour Hoops 1 on all socials. And Friday night, enjoy potentially the last game of the NBA Finals. Or will Luka and the Mavs hold on and make it interesting?
Have a good night, folks.
Later, guys.